The internet buzz.
What the fuck is the internet?
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another. Here's what we're looking for, moviepoopshoot.com.
Poop shooting. Yeah.
This is a site populated by militant movie buffs, sad, pathetic little bastards living in their parents' basement, downloading scripts and what they think is inside information about movies and actors they claim to despise yet can't stop discussing.
The Tainted Glove presents Yumper and Svo at the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Oh, what a big man you are! Hey, let me buy you a pack of gum. I'll show you how to chew it. Ooh.
And Justin Svo Svoboda.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Welcome, everyone, to the first live edition of Yumper and Svo, episode 14. I'm one of your hosts, Tom Garcia, a.k.a. Yumper, and I'm with my co-host, Justin Svo Svoboda. How's it going, Svo?
Yump. What's up, buddy? This is our first live podcast. This is exciting.
Oh, extremely exciting. We got two fantastic guests. We got a great subject to talk about. Let's get the show on the road, huh?
Yeah, I think we should just dive right in.
Cool. So let's start off with our usual question of the week that we always do. What were we watching? So, Svo, tell me what you've been watching this week.
So I got a chance to go watch Jaws in IMAX. One of the greatest movies ever made. Absolutely fantastic. And I finally got around to seeing Thor: Love and Thunder. I know it just came out on Disney Plus, but my wife and I had a day off together during the week, and we caught a matinee, and I absolutely I liked it a lot. Way more than I liked Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I want to see this one again. How about you, Yump?
Well, I did see Thor. Thor was actually, I love the soundtrack. I think it's probably the second best Thor, I would say, behind Ragnarok. Jaws is all-time classic. Spielberg at his best, summer blockbuster. I happened to go to see Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 2. By far, one of the best opening scenes of just having Little Groot dance to Mr. Blue Sky by ELO.
You went to go see it, or you watched it?
No. I watched it at home. My son's been obsessed with Groot. He's obsessed with Groot. So we watched this movie, and I just love the opening of him dancing and whatnot. And then another movie I saw was this movie called Shot Caller, which is actually directed by the guy who made Felon. It's kind of funny. I was listening to Zo talk on the Pinwheels and Ivy, and he mentioned the movie, and I'm like, I saw that movie. Basically, it's a banker who actually goes into jail for DUI, and he accidentally killed somebody, and he goes to jail for that. And while in there, he basically has to survive in there, and basically ends up in there for life. But it's actually a really good movie. Check it out. Not like the greatest, but it's a decent movie. I would check it out. The guy who did Felon did it by the name of Rick Roman Raw. So it's got some elements from that, and it's got Cheddar Bob's in there from Eminem from 8 Mile. He actually plays one of his cellies. Decent cast, decent movie. Check out.
I actually watched it as well based on your recommendation, and I love how they went back and forth with his story, pre-jail and what led up to jail. And what's his name, John Bernthal, Punisher,
yeah,
was fantastic in the movie. Really, really creepy dude, and he turns out to be. Well, I'm not going to say what he turns out to be, but for people that haven't seen it, but I actually really, really enjoyed it as well. So thanks, Zo, for recommending that flick.
Yes. Also, Holt McCallany's in there as one of the bad guys. He actually plays a really good role in there too. You might know him from Mindhunter. It's probably where he's been getting a lot more fame in Mindhunter. But yeah, so that's what we've been watching this week. With that, let's get into our guest this week. So as you know, we have our segment In Defense Of, and this week we have a special guest. He's a veteran of White Sox Twitter. You can find him discussing all things White Sox and Cubs on Sports Mockery's Pinwheels and Ivy Podcast, or on the back nine of a golf course, the Prince of Bush Light. You can know him as Southside Zo. Welcome to the show, Southside Zo.
That was probably one of the best introductions I've ever gotten. And gentlemen, I do want to say I am honored to be your first live guest on this show. That is really, really cool. I'm very pumped about that. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. So thank you.
Mhm.
And thanks for the movie recommendation. Shot Caller was actually pretty good. I was surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did.
No problem. It was definitely one of those movies where, you're not feeling tip top maybe after too many Bush Lights. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh, it's free. I'll give this a go. And I watched it. That wasn't bad. I was like, all right, okay, I'll mess with this movie. And yeah, it gets wild too. Like that goes off to places I didn't think it was going to go. And it moves quick too, which I like.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
go ahead, Yump. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go with your spiel of what you gotta do.
So Zoe, we have a couple questions that we ask all of our guests. And it's just kind of like our foundation. So I want to go over them with you. Nothing too crazy, but what movie do you watch when you are under the weather or feeling sick, or what movie comforts you?
Well, it's probably my favorite movie of all time for a lot of reasons. And I think when people pick their favorite movies of all time, it's not just so much the actual movie. A lot of it comes from where that movie came into your life. You know what I mean? Like a special time, or it makes you think of things or whatever. And so I watched the movie Snatch a lot. The Guy Ritchie film. I love that movie, the soundtrack, the acting, just the storyline. I can recite it verbatim right now. So like as far as movies goes, that is it. And then if I need like a comedy or just something to like literally just like turn my brain off and just like if life is getting too heavy, it's a classic, man. I go to Tommy Boy. Tommy Boy makes me laugh my ass off every time.
Those are both really, really great answers, and I love them. I love Tommy Boy. I love Guy Ritchie movies. I just finally watched The Gentleman the other day, like absolute classic. So I love those answers. Now, what movie theater did you go to as a kid? What was your go-to movie theater? Where was it when you were a kid?
Um, it was probably as a kid, Crestwood. I think that's an AMC. It is an AMC. Crestwood, AMC, and then they didn't touch. I still think they haven't touched that theater since I was a kid, and it's gotten lapped ridiculously by all the upgrades that they're doing now. So when I do go to the theater now, if I can, I just go to Chicago Ridge Mall, which because they got the cushy ass seats and they got a bar, and the AMC's upgrade that they did all over the place except for Crestwood apparently. But yeah, I like it's wild to me now, man. You go to some of these theaters and they got like little love seats and like recliners, and like it's no more like you get out of there and your ass is numb from sitting on the hard seat for 2 hours. But now you can sit there, you get they give you like the to go soup thing from Chinese food restaurants full of beer, and you sit there. And then now though it's added a new wrinkle to the movie watching experience, because I'm becoming a pretty old washed dad, and I'm like, if I drink this now, I'm gonna have to pee an hour and 20 minutes in, and I'm probably gonna miss this. And there used to be that app like when you should go pee during movies. One of the Plumber brothers designed that app. But so yeah, growing up Crestwood, now probably Chicago Ridge Mall.
I like it. I actually, the night before, like our wedding rehearsal for Kelly and I, we went to Chicago Ridge Mall with my nephew, and you're right, those theaters have been redone and very nice with the reclining cushy seats.
Mhm.
Now, last question: do you remember what movie you went to go see the first time your parents dropped you off on your own, like to go hang out with your buddies, and you were
Yeah.
solo? Do you remember what the movie was?
Oh wow, I'm old, guys. I want to say it's one of the Jurassic Parks, and the big hype was that the chairs vibrated like in the theater, and like people were like freaking out about that, like it would shake and shit. I mean, I'm only 38, so I was still relatively young. Let's just say my parents had a lot of trust in me. But I think I went and saw it with a couple people, and then I went and saw it with my dad. But I remember it was one of the Jurassic Parks because for some reason, the hype about the chairs vibrating, like the new sound system and the chairs vibrating when the dinosaurs were, I just remember being so juiced up to go experience that. And yeah, I think I'm not 100% on that. And I think my little brother's watching. He'll probably text me bullshit right now, but I'm pretty sure that was it.
I kind of love that. I feel like, and Yump and I have talked about this a bunch of times, that's kind of like a rite of passage for young guys. Like when your parents finally trust you enough to drop you off to go hang out at the movies with your buddies. So I love that you kind of remember Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So now let's get into the fun part. We asked you to come on, and I DM'd you late on a Friday night, I think.
Yes.
And you were completely transparent with me, and you were like, "Look, man, I am a little." You were feeling good, and you said that this was a movie that you were very, very passionate about, and you wanted to defend. Now, I had never seen it till this week, so I don't know why it needs defense, but I want to hear why you love this movie. The movie is Everybody Wants Some. Yumper, do you have some fun facts about this movie?
Yeah, so this movie was actually directed by Richard Linklater. It's considered a rite of passage after his movie Boyhood. At the end of Boyhood, if you've ever seen that movie, it basically starts where this movie ends where this movie begins. This movie actually stars Blake Jenner, Tyler Hoechlin, Zoe Deutsch, Wyatt Russell, Glenn Powell, J. Quentin Johnson, and Temple Baker. This movie had a budget of $10 million and made 5.4 at the box office. It's a critically acclaimed movie, though. So when you said you were in defense of this, I was like, wow, this movie's got a very high rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got an 87%. So tell me why you have to defend this movie all the time.
So I guess I gotta give a little bit of a backstory, and I'll try to be quick. So I grew up in the South Side of Chicago in a neighborhood called Beverly. Okay. So Beverly is a lot of like, I don't know how to, when I was growing up in Beverly, it's a little different than it was now, but like the Grateful Dead and the Fish culture were very like popular, and literally like when you hit a certain age, you had to watch Dazed and Confused like 10 times in a row. Like you needed, if you went to school and you couldn't quote Dazed and Confused, like you were just an outcast, like you were a nerd, whatever. Like Dazed and Confused was that movie in the neighborhood growing up. So as you mentioned, Richard Linklater is the director of this movie, and this was kind of billed as the sequel to Dazed and Confused, which is not correct at all. But people saw Texas, they saw a group of dudes, you know, whatever, and like there is parallels to it. And Linklater went on to say that it's like the spiritual sequel, if you will. Like he's like, I kind of had the same vibe when I did this, but so a lot of the people that I grew up with, or that in my circle, whatever, when that came out, they came into it with these like insane expectations because they thought it was going to be Dazed and Confused again. And so I feel like I need to defend it because it's not Dazed and Confused. It's an equally as great movie, but people feel like this letdown because they went into it with such a high expectation. So that's why I constantly have to be like, this is a really good movie. Like, you guys should watch this movie.
So what's this? If you had to like sum up what this movie is about, what would you say this movie is about?
Like a real summary, or what I like my symbolism, like get deep into it?
Let's go literal here.
Okay, literal is it's the fall of 1980 in a fake college in Texas. The main character, his name Jake, is arriving at this college for the first time. Jake is a pitcher. So it opens up with, in classic Linklater format, like there's a timeline to like the first day of classes in the bottom right hand corner. So it gives you like a timing sequence, also similar to Dazed and Confused. The first scene is him walking up to the baseball house. So it's the two shitty ass college baseball houses in 1980 in Texas. And it's just about this dude, Jake, in the 3 days before school starts, meeting his teammates, getting a real quick crash course on what college life is going to be like. And just basically they talk a lot about baseball and what it's like to be on a team. But I mean, it's a typical, like, there's tons of booze, there's tons of partying, there's, you know, a lot. It's absolutely hysterical. But I think one of the reasons why I like it so much is there's so many different characters in this movie that it's easy for the viewer to pick one of the characters and be like, I was like that guy in college. You know what I mean? And I mean, I got one of those that I relate to, but they got all the stereotypes, like the hard ass dude from Detroit that says he could have went pro, but he didn't want to, and he throws 99 miles an hour. And they call me Raw Dog, that dude. And they got like, you know, the hillbilly, they got the hard asses, they got the spiritual dude. Unfortunately, they do have a token. There's one black guy in the whole movie, and I always was just like, come on, throw another black guy in there for this guy. But I guess it's 1980 Texas, but whatever. But like they have all the stereotypes, and yeah, it's a really funny movie. It's really well done, really well put together. You never once are looking at your watch being like, this is still going. You know what I mean? Like it just flows, and yeah, that's pretty much. I'm trying not to spoil the movie. I'm not good at not spoiling things.
No, I think you did a great job. So I have a couple observations from this movie because I watched it for the first time, and I hopped in our group chat, the Tainted Glove group chat, and I talked about I loved it. I thought it was absolutely like a perfect movie. I had two beefs with the movie, right?
Mhm.
Actually, I had just one beef and one observation, I should say. One, whatever Southwest Texas team, whatever they were, they blatantly ripped off the Florida State Seminoles logo with
and the colors.
And the colors. So it was a blatant FSU ripoff. But that's whatever. The movie was great. I love Richard Linklater movies. And I think I said this to you in the DMs. Like, if you think about it, Dazed and Confused did take place right before the summer of 1976.
Mhm.
And whenever I talk to my dad and we talk about Dazed and Confused, the first thing that I tell him is like, I wish I was 16 years old in 1976. So I could experience, you know, the music that came out at that time, because I grew up with my old man's music. And the second thing is the movie takes place in like the fall of the 80s. So when they talk about how it could be a spiritual sequel, like that could be Mitch like enrolling as a freshman in the
Mitch
80s,
Kramer.
right? Like it could be Mitch Kramer. Like I love this movie. I thought it was fantastic. It does not need defense. Fids raves about this movie. I think Yump finally. Did you watch it this week, Yump?
Yeah, I've seen it in pieces. I only heard about this movie maybe a couple years ago, actually, so which is kind of funny that you mentioned, you know, this movie that you want to defend. But in our DMs, you know how Fids gets with his movies, and I already didn't like two of Fids' movies he gave me, the Nicolas Cage one and Nope. So I haven't seen it all the way through. Fids is like describing some part from the movie, and I was just like, yeah, that's like the worst part of that movie. He's like, oh, that's, of course you would say that.
Of course you would say that.
But watching it fully through, like, I actually really enjoyed it. I love the aspect that, you know, it's showing basically the transition from high school and being on your own, showing how competitive sports teams were. I mean, we were on sports teams and like everything was being competitive there. Like no matter what you did, you're just trying to be competitive, meeting new people. The funniest part about this movie is it's based with baseball players, and there's minimum baseball played in this movie, which I thought was hilarious. The soundtrack is awesome. You got Blondie, The Knack, SOS Band, Pat Benatar, Van Halen. You know, they did the title track. That's where they got the name from for the movie. I really liked it. I found it really interesting that like Glenn Powell, Will Britton, J. Quentin Johnson, they all went to school in Texas, University of Texas at Austin. They all went there. And the guy who played McReynolds actually played college ball. As long as the director, he also played college ball as well. So, I mean, these were built off his experiences. It was kind of like a watered down version of Bull Durham, but in the college sense, I guess. That's the kind of vibe I was getting from it. I really like that. You know, I like the whole premise, the way it was set up. Now, comparing it to Dazed and Confused, you could consider it a sequel or not. I think that's more of a marketing thing. Like I said, Linklater said that this movie is more of a continuation of Boyhood. But I think that's another reason too why it probably didn't get that much, you know, publicity, was because people saw it thinking it was Dazed and Confused sequel, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" When they should just took it as, you know, its own entity and the director's continuation timeline. I liked it. You know, I gave it 2 thumbs up for it. So Fitz, finally, you can say I liked one of your movies.
I hope he didn't hear that, because I don't want him to ever know that. But yeah, man, and like I said earlier, you can just relate to these characters, and I personally feel like I had the same college experience as Walt Finnegan, the guy that's always walking around. And I just love the fact that he gives that one speech. Oh, Fitz heard that. They give that one speech where he talks about, they're just chameleons, just, looking to have a good time, and how they go to the different types of parties. But it's a standard, like, sex, drugs, rock and roll, and baseball, man. If you like any one of those four things, you will dig this movie. And it's a really fun movie. I watched it just twice this week just because I knew I was coming on here to talk about it. So I didn't mind rewatching it. Like, it wasn't like and I found a different thing funny every time. Like, if you've ever played on a team or were a part of any kind of organization when you were in high school or college, this movie will hit home for you at some point.
Absolutely agree. And then Zoe Dutch, I don't know if you know this, but her father was a director, Howard, and he made one of my favorite movies, Some Kind of Wonderful. So, and she's also in, I don't know if you've ever seen Why Him?
I feel like I have, but I don't.
James Franco's in it. Bryan Cranston's in it. He's like this tech billionaire.
Oh, okay. I did see this
nozzle.
movie.
So
Yes.
she's in that movie too. That's where I recognized her from.
Yeah, she's in Zombieland Part 2 as well. She plays Madison.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad you
Her
said
mom-
that, because
yeah.
that's where I recognized her from. And I didn't want to sound like a nerd and be like,
No,
I recognize
no.
her from Zombieland.
No, we love Zombieland.
Yeah, and her mom is actually Leah Thompson from Back to the Future. The mom from Back to the Future, Lorraine McFly. That's Some Kind of Wonderful is actually where she met her husband, which is pretty crazy. But awesome movies though. Like I don't know like why anybody wouldn't like it. I recommend you guys check it out.
Yeah, I think it's more just a personal. I felt the need, just where I grew up in my circle. It's just, I think too many people weighed too heavy on it being the Dazed and Confused sequel. And I mean, it does feel like a Dazed and Confused type movie.
Yeah.
But some of the other things that are different, Dazed and Confused had an absolutely loaded fucking cast. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely loaded cast. Those guys went on to do big things. This cast is a lot of good actors and actresses, but I mean, it's not like Matthew McConaughey's first movie. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's not the same level, but this is a really, really, really good movie.
Absolutely. I loved it. I bought it and I didn't regret like a single minute of it, like after I purchased it. So fantastic movie. Thanks for coming on and defending it, Zoe.
Thank you for having me, fellas. I love that you're doing it live. I love that there's all these people in the comment section. Everybody show them some love, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And I'll catch you guys later.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zoe.
Take care, fellas.
Oh man, so that was a very good. I like that movie a lot. But Fitz finally got me. But let's go move on to our next guest. So we're gonna talk some Kevin Smith movies, and who better to do it with than an OG 108 member. The man knows a lot about certain things such as the thrift store, Beanie Babies, and craft beer. The one and only My Sox Summer.
What's up?
What's up, man?
I am so small on this screen. Like I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, I can't even see my eyes. I hope they're open. Uh-oh.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that's cool. You can do it the other way. That's fun. I just was like, I'm just trying to figure it out. And like, I'm old now. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm 45. And the I want to read the comments because there's always good comments that you can pull content from, especially like a guy named Pitts. I mean, this fiddler guy. I don't know who this guy is, but he's awesome. You can pull comments from that. I have to be able to read it, so then I can't look at myself, and I'm so vain. I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm still looking good. So if Mr. Hand, happy birthday, buddy. If you have me up on the big screen, like just give me a thumb, send me a thumbs up tweet. Be like, yo, you look good, dude. You're fine. Okay, that's all I need.
Yeah, I was gonna wait till later on to do it, but our compadre, Mr. Han.
Aloha, Mr. Han.
Happy birthday, my man.
Yeah, he's 54. He has a reverse age of me right now, which is crazy. My daughter, my youngest today, thought he was only 14 years old. So he looks pretty good for 14. Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Don't listen to him. You look fantastic.
So MSS, thanks so much for coming on. You know,
Yeah.
I know you've been going back and forth trying to decide of a time to come on. And when you were talking about Kevin Smith and your love of it, I figured this would be a great time for us to come on
Yeah.
and get into some Kevin Smith movies.
Hell yeah.
But Mr. Svo is going to ask you some questions like we always do with each guest.
All right. So you know the spiel. I'm not going to go into it again. I just want to know a couple things because we love hearing these stories.
Yeah.
What is your go-to movie when you're not feeling well or you're down or you're sick? What is your go-to movie that you put on?
So
family friendly though.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, usually if I'm sick or feeling not so well, yeah, no, I don't want to talk about those movies. But the movie that I probably like the most and probably makes me the happiest when I see it is 100%. I love Swingers. It's probably my number one. It was probably one of my favorite movies ever. And I got to watch that with my dad, like when it first came out. And my dad's still alive, so you know he's still around. We could watch movies together all the time. But he, I just remember watching it and seeing the hockey scene when they're playing the Sega Genesis, and like he's like, "I'm gonna make little Wayne bleed," and they're like, "Dude, we're in the playoffs," you know. And it was so funny. And I'm watching it and I'm like laughing my ass off, and my dad is just looking at me like, "What?" And I'm like, "This is exactly how it is. Like when we play hockey, this is what it is." Like, and I was in college at the time, and we were just like out there, just you know, smoking cigarettes and just playing a ton of Sega Genesis and drinking tons of Mountain Dew if we couldn't get our hands on anything else. But yeah, that's definitely my number one.
Don't say that right now, man. I'm on day 16 of no soda, and that's like a killer for me.
How did you get through bringing 72 18 packs of Mountain Dew to your team just like 3 days ago, and you haven't had soda?
I haven't had it. I didn't touch it. I've been behaved. The doctor was like, "Dude, you got to stop drinking so much Pepsi."
Yeah.
So I'm on like day 16 of no soda. So
man, it's brutal. Bloney, you're right. That's a hard one. He's saying that the voicemail scene in Swingers is harsh, brutal. And it is. You're just like, "Oh, shut up, please, just shut up." So,
what movie theater did you go to growing up?
So that's funny. And originally I was like, man, we used to go to the downtown theater. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm from Sterling, Illinois, and we had one big ass theater downtown, which sounded really big when you were first there, because you're little. But as you grew up, you realize this was like a 2 theater place, and it was tiny. It was tiny as hell. It was right by the baseball card shop. But the coolest thing about this place, and it went to shit, and then they redid it and revamped it. They had translucent like glass block that goes up the front and the side, and there was dome lights in them. So they would light up, and then in Christmas time, they would light up in Christmas colors, and then Sterling in, you know, moving old bulb moving lights, you know, that all got restored here just, you know, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And it just looks awesome. It looks like a very awesome downtown Sterling. It went to total hell, you know, when they started building strip malls and everything in Sterling. So now they've revamped it, and they've revamped it so much that like my wife and I, when we got married, took a picture in front of that with like just me dipping her like kind of in the streets of Sterling, and like the lit up Sterling real nice and big. We almost won a contest for the coolest photo that this photographer had taken that year. But we didn't, so we didn't get the big, you know, special, you know, canvas, but it's still a great picture. So that was the first theater that I remember going to as a kid.
I love that. I love that story because it obviously meant something to you, and you went back and you took a picture in front of it.
Love it.
For your wedding.
Yep.
That's fantastic. Now, do you remember the first movie that you're like, I don't know what growing up in Sterling was like, that your parents dropped you off at the theater?
Yeah. So what's funny is that, you know, Zoe was saying, yeah, he's like, we went and watched Jurassic Park. And I'm like, man, the first movie I remember seeing at a theater by myself, or was with my cousin, who was the same age as me, Farmer Matt, was the Smurfs and the Magic Flute. And I think it was like $1 to get in on Sundays. We went after CCD, and we would go. I mean, I feel like I saw the Smurfs and the Magic Flute and ate a box of like Farrapan or Terrapan Jawbreakers, the mini Jawbreakers. And we watched that. I would say I probably seen the Smurfs and the Magic Flute like 8 times, like in those years, like when I was young. that was just every Sunday that they would just drop us off there. We'd watch a movie for 2 hours. So that was the movie I remember the most. I also know when E.T. was huge, every family member that I had that didn't have kids at that time that were young enough took me to see E.T. So I saw E.T. like 700 times, so much that I was like, I don't want to fucking see E.T. no more. Like I'm just done. I can cuss on this show, right? I'm pretty sure I can, right? Okay. I can't. Well, I don't know. I'm just making sure. And so yeah, no, I literally like I saw E.T. so much that I just never wanted to see it again. And then I remember getting the VHS copy, for Christmas one year, and I was like, oh, I don't even want to watch this. So I want to watch E.T. with my kids, but I feel like it'll freak them out right now. He's goofy looking.
Yeah, it's also like it's a great movie. So I don't want Fidz coming at me for saying that it's not, because he's our little Dawson Leary from Dawson's Creek, where if you say anything bad about Steven Spielberg, he comes at you. But it's E.T.'s kind of depressing. Like it's a depressing movie.
It is.
So.
Extremely. It's scary. It's kind of scary too. Like when they come after him in the suits, like his screaming, the shit in the beginning of the movie when he's running through the weeds.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I was like, what the hell's going on? And like you said, MSS, I couldn't show it to my kid yet. I don't know how he would take it. He'd probably be freaked out by it.
Yeah.
But
they're
he's
plastic, like plastic tents, and there's weird shadows, and you're like, who are these people? And why are they trying to kill this poor defenseless thing that likes Reese's Pieces?
Right.
I mean,
he just
Jesus,
wants to go
leave
home.
the kid alone. Yeah, he just wants to go home. Exactly. That's all he wants to do is go home.
Well, I love that story, and I love hearing stories about like movies and how people grew up watching them. I love that, man. Thanks for sharing.
Anytime.
But with that, MSS, are you ready to talk some Kevin Smith movies?
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's get to our first one.
Something like 36.
What? Something like 36?
Who are you boys?
Wait, what is that anyway? Something like 36. Does that include me?
37.
I'm 37?
Going to class.
Oh my God. 37. My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks.
In a row?
1994's Clerks. This movie starred Brian O'Halloran, Jeff Anderson, Marilyn Gulliati, Lisa Spooner, Jason Mewes, and Kevin Smith. This movie had a budget of $230,000, which Kevin Smith actually raised on his own mostly, and a box office of $4.4 million. Guys, starting with MSS, tell me why you love Clerks.
Clerks to me was a total step outside of a traditionally popular movie at the time. And it was like so indie and so much like just in with like how everyone was kind of feeling, I feel like in the 90s. Like that movie just smells like the 90s. And it was just, I don't know, man. They have shock jocks, you have your Howard Stern. Wasn't listening to Howard Stern at that point, but this was like a shock movie. Like nobody was talking about how many dicks your girlfriend sucked. Like no one was talking about like, oh, these kids are like, there's like, you have the big story, which is like, a woman screws a dead body in the back of a convenience store. This is like shocking, weird, like dark humor, but so funny, like just insanely funny. And it broke away from like what you were expecting from a movie to go see when you walked into a movie theater. And it really like just, it literally changed how people thought of movies, I think.
I completely agree. I think one of the things I read was Quentin Tarantino worked in a video store and went out and made a movie. Well, Kevin Smith worked in a convenience store and went out and made a movie about the convenience store. And this movie was bizarre, and it was a game changer for me. It was like just two everyday dudes that wanted to play hockey, like on his day off. He hates his job. His girlfriend's on his ass about going back to school, and he's like, shut the fuck up already. But this movie was different. It felt raw. It felt like you could go out and make this movie. But Kevin Smith was talented, and he actually did. I love Clerks.
Yeah, it's this is a movie that Kevin Smith made from passion. And the reason he's in the movie was because he spent all his money on it, and he maxed out his credit cards. He figured that if he was going to be broke for the rest of his life, he can at least show that he did something to make himself go broke. The funny part is that line, the sound clip I use, it's actually something that the Miramax readers were reading for the script to see if they wanted to distribute this movie. And when I got through that part, after Dante's going after his girlfriend for how many people she blew, he was laughing so hard he took it to his manager, who then actually got signed off for the film to be distributed, which I thought was pretty cool. The movie shows basically a life and working at a job. That's actually the store that Kevin Smith worked at. Like, he shot in off hours. That's why most of the blinds are closed. The whole reason it's shot in black and white is because he couldn't afford the different cameras for the better lighting. Like, it was low budget. Everything was low budget. Most of his friends are in there, but it has so many good, comedic lines in there. It just shows the frustration of customers. Not really with Randall, because Randall's kind of an asshole. But when Dante's explaining about the milkmaids, and like, I've seen that when I used to work in convenience stores, people would go all the way to the back and pull out the milk. I never saw some guy messing with eggs, but then you got, and then like even at the gas station, like I've worked at the gas station, and you have a guy who just stands there with his coffee and talks to you. But in this case, it was a guy trying to sell gum to prevent people from smoking for his company.
A Chuli's gum representative?
Chuli's gum, yeah.
But when you work those jobs, you could be the best people person in the world, but it beats you down, and then you have to get called in when somebody calls off. And his famous line, "I'm not even supposed to be here today." Like, you feel it. I really like the whole story of it is just hilarious. He seems more of a serious person. You have Dante, Randall, who's just an asshole, and just like the fact that he just goes over from his store, the video store, and just chills with him all day. It just cracks me up.
When you think Randall can't get any lower, he goes and he gets lower when he knocks the body out of the casket at the funeral, right?
Yeah.
Like, you think he can't go any lower, and he does.
You know what? I would disagree with like how low Randall is, right? Or how bad he is, because I think he was the most honest person in that movie. Dante is like, I'm better than this. This is just temporary, the kind of deal. I'm going to be this, or I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have to deal with this. I shouldn't be there. And they have that classic blowout fight where, Randall's just yelling at him. He's like, shut the fuck up. Like, stop whining, you bitch. Like, just enjoy yourself. Like, Randall works in a movie store and leaves the movie store to go rent a movie at a better movie store to bring it back. I mean, that's who he is. Like, he's like, listen, he's 100% Steve Stone. Just enjoy the ride. Randall is just like, I'm enjoying this. They're paying me money, and I'm watching a show. I'm watching a movie. I'm getting paid to watch a movie. Like, why are you so butthurt? And then Dante has no reason to be upset. He has a nice girlfriend who brings him lasagna. He has a girl his ex-girl who's going to marry an Asian design major. And like, she comes back and it's just like, you don't see like the traditional, Ralph. I know Ralph Macchio in Karate Kid was not a traditional hero in the traditional sense, right? But he was like, the little guy comes up and wins. Well, the little guy didn't really win here, like he fights through it, and he's got his girlfriend coming in, but then she's catatonic by the end of the movie. But he realizes, hey, this is my friend, and this is my friends, and this is my life, and I'm going to enjoy this. And now they've made 2 more of them, so it's just like it's a great story arc. It's obviously Kevin Smith talking about, I need to do something more with my life, but than just what I'm doing. But he did do something with his life, so it's nice. It's a good, warm, and like fuzzy, great movie. I like it. I really like it. It's probably one of my favorite movies.
I couldn't agree more. Like, he's made a career out of making these movies, and he's made himself like a pretty decent career. Like, I'm like, Yumper and I are gonna go see Clerks 3 next week at the theater. Like,
I want to go.
Like, it's awesome. I love Clerks. You'll never hear a disparaging word about this movie from me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Everything you guys said. MSS, you nailed it with your explanation. Like, I do find it funny that the original ending to this movie was actually Dante getting killed.
Yeah, good shot.
And the studio executives didn't like it. So they actually changed. So that's actually something good that happened because we wouldn't have Clerks 2 or, unless he brought him back from the dead. But you have, this is it spun off cartoons, comic books, it's TV series.
Yeah.
It's like we said, the third one's coming out. So this movie's still, cherished by a lot of people. And if you guys can see on here, MSS actually provided a picture of some of the memorabilia he has. He actually has the Clerks, the comic book that's actually signed by Kevin Smith, and it says, Jacob, we are two of those single guys we were talking about. So how'd you get this, MSS?
So I used to work stage crew and production for Northern Illinois University. And that's literally how I met my wife. She walked in to get a job, and I was in charge of hiring as a sophomore in college. I was in charge of hiring a crew to load in and out concerts and theatrical productions and anything that came to NIU. And so one of my brilliant ideas is what I'm going to do is I'm going to hire like good looking women. So when it's 2:00 in the morning and we're like dripping with sweat and we've been working for 8 hours, like we at least are motivated by something. And I was like, the motivation can be good looking women.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Did you inspire the 40-year-old virgin?
No,
because that's a scene from the 40-year-old virgin. Yeah, yes. I hired this 110-pound girl to carry 80-inch TVs.
Yes.
Did you inspire the 40-year-old virgin?
I mean, I don't know if he knew that I did that. Seth Rogen probably wasn't there, but I think people steal my ideas all the time.
I think so too.
But no, literally, I there was at least 6 or 7 girls that were hired basically because we need them to like look good, and they could probably rap chords. There's always little jobs you can have them do. So anyway, yeah, I did that, and it just happens that Kevin Smith was speaking, and I think it was like 1996 because I don't think it was my freshman year, it was my sophomore year, and you had to I don't know if you had to buy tickets or you had to win tickets or something to meet him, but I knew all the security guards. And so I said to the security guy, I was like, hey, can I just go up and meet him? I'm like, yeah, just go ahead and get in line at the end. And I was like, all right, cool. So I took over this and I took over something that we'll show later and like just went up to him. And it was total Kevin Smith wearing jeans and a blue hooded sweatshirt, zip up hooded sweatshirt, t-shirt. He had just come into like NIU. He gave a speech. He showed us, I think he showed us some animation stuff of Clerks. And then he also showed us the first like 8 minutes of Dogma. So we saw Dogma before it was even like cut, like he was just taking it around to schools, and he was just awesome. And he talked about all these just great stories and told you all this inside stuff, none of which I can remember. But like, I just knew that it was fun and people would ask questions, and one of the big things back then was like, will you put me in your next movie? And he was always like, yes, get my number. I'll put you in my next movie. And then, so he was everything you thought he was going to be when you met him. I thought he was great, just a down to earth guy, and just like us, and the quote on that comic book is from the quote from what he's saying on there was talking about a different movie. And when we get to that movie, I'll say this is what it was from. But because we talked about some stuff, because I was like, I got into these situations and I'm like, I have to ask him certain questions because I met Henry Rollins one time. And I asked him about Lost Highway. I'm sure Henry Rollins has never been asked about being in Lost Highway ever before, and probably hadn't been asked since. It was a David Lynch movie. And I just wanted to be like, I was infatuated with David Lynch. And I'm like, how was it working with, David Lynch? And he's like, dude, he didn't even know what he was doing. We would be like, he gave me a script like right beforehand. He's like, just read it. And he's like, all right, that's great. He's like, and he's on such a tight budget and such a tight schedule. Like you shoot it once, it's over. And you're like, no, I want to change something. He's like, no, that was great. We're running with it. And so it's like Henry Rollins, is like getting David Lynch to be like, you did it fine. Just move on. So yeah, I had to talk to him. I had to talk to him and ask him questions about movies,
I think that's super dope. Kind of like sometimes celebrities don't want to talk about the shit that they're doing or like the obvious stuff. Like, I remember you were there. I'm almost positive you were there, but do you remember when Tim Anderson did the thing at Buffalo Wings and Rings?
Yeah. So I wasn't there.
I was the first person in line and I got up to him and I'm like, Timmy, I got to ask you a question. because I know he's from Alabama. I'm like,
Yeah.
who do you hate more, Auburn or LSU football? And he was like, dude, I never even thought of that. Thank you for asking that. It's always Auburn. But sometimes, like, when you ask them, like, random shit that has nothing to do with, like, baseball or movies, they're like, hell yeah.
Yeah. Because they get asked the same thing all the time.
Over and over again.
So you want to like mix it up a little bit, you know?
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Wanna... Go ahead, Yump.
No. That was actually a really cool story about Kevin Smith. But from everybody I've known that has met him, they say he's really approachable, like down to earth dude. And you can kind of show it too. Like as we go through his movies, a lot of his friends are in his movies, like continuously.
His
like,
wife.
You know, Jay Muse used to work for him. You know, that was that's how he became Jay.
Well, the next movie, if you go to the next movie, they tried to get rid of Jason Mewes and Mallrats and replace him with Breckin Meyer and Seth Green.
Seriously?
Yes.
And Kevin Smith was like, absolutely not. Like, he'll come in, he'll pay for his own hotel room. If you don't like the dailies, then we can talk about it. But he wouldn't get rid of him. And there's a story in his book about Jay's heroin addiction and how he stuck by him during that. And if you haven't read that story, it's heartbreaking and it's uplifting all at the same time. I highly recommend it.
It was a blog first.
It was a blog post at first, yeah.
I remember reading that. It was probably the first blog post I've ever read in my entire life. And I went through the whole thing. And I feel like I even printed it out because I was like, my buddy needs to read this too. So I printed it out to take it to him. And it is, you're right. It is one of the most gut-wrenching stories, but so brutally honest.
Yeah.
And just like a great ending to the whole thing. Like it was just, it's amazing to learn that and amazing to know like that he's gone through all that stuff and it still like was good.
Yeah, definitely. If you actually listen to Jackass Steve-O, he actually has Jason Mewes on his pod where they're in this van, and he actually talks about, you know, how Kevin Smith actually stuck by him for everything and how he had to do tough love to him when he was, you know, going down that spiral of drugs.
Yeah.
You know, that Kevin Smith is an awesome dude, just for that alone, to help his friend out and stick by him when it got tough. So, you know, and it shows like in the movies, like we'll have like certain movies that are coming up, it'll explain like why certain things are happening because of what's going on with Jay. But let's move on to the next one.
Wow, it's a schooner.
You dumb bastard. It's not a schooner, it's a sailboat.
A schooner is a sailboat, stupid head.
You know what? There is no Easter Bunny! Over there, that's just a guy in a suit!
1995's Mallrats, starring Shannon Doherty, Jeremy London, Jason Lee, Claire Forlani, Ben Affleck, and Joey Lauren Adams. This movie had a budget of $6.1 million and it made $2.1 million at the box office. Funny thing about this movie is it's actually considered Jay Muse's favorite movie. And the reason being is he said Clerks was done with a bunch of friends. They were doing all their own lighting, everything, you know, everything was done by them. And he said he felt like he made it when he get to Mallrats because they're actually on a set. They had a crew, and he's like, it felt like we finally made it. What you think about this movie, Swell?
So I'm one of like probably the 14 people that saw this in the theater. I remember going to see it at Sony Theaters in Streamwood, and it was me and like 3 other people. And 2 of them were my friends. And this movie, I have never laughed so hard in a movie. It was the rise of the fanboy. It was okay to like comic books. It was okay to like nerdy things. It was okay to have these conversations about, you know, Lois Lane's fallopian tubes and Superman's like super strong sperm. I can't say enough great things about how I feel about Mallrats. I thought the soundtrack was fantastic. There's a Weezer song on there, Suzanne, that I absolutely love. I love Jason Lee. I love the Batman references, obviously, the game show, the chocolate covered pretzels. It's just such a stupid movie that reminds me of being in high school.
What about you, MSS?
That's impressive that you saw it in a theater because you're not that old, right?
I'm 40.
Okay, so you are that old. So like it was like freshman year of college for me, and I remember that this was like just coming out, and we because I lived in Sterling, we didn't see any independent movies, so I never saw Clerks until I got to college, and it was like on the the like college circuit. We saw it in like a little, you know, room. But the Mallrats, I remember I didn't see it in the theaters. I saw it when it came out on VHS, and it was like panned. It was hated back then by everybody. It was not the same. And it was just like, it was almost too smart. And like people use like, oh, it was ahead of its time, kind of, you know, like that cliche for a lot of things. But this really was ahead of its time, because if you revisit it, it's hilarious. And to see that, like, some of the stuff that happened in there, and like the whole Volkswagen stuff and An Uncomfortable Place, you know, and this, it's like, it's great. And like the you know, the dad, the guy that still lives at home with his mom and makes his girlfriend climb out the window underneath, you know, in the basement. Like it was a great movie after the fact. It was not a great movie in the scene, but it's hard to follow up a classic, and Clerks is a classic. So like whatever you come out with, unless it's a totally different departure, like people are gonna be like, oh, that I didn't really like that, you know. So that's hard.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Clerks was so like critically acclaimed. You know, people liked it just for the way it was shot. You know, like I said, it had a lot of real life aspects to it. You know, struggling with what you want to do in life. And this movie is more like, it's kind of like, it's a more traditional comedy.
Yeah.
You know, Jay and Silent Bob trying to get to the stage, you know, acting like Batman, you know, hitting people with the damn bat, snootchie boochies, you know, stuff like that.
X-Men references. Even.
Yeah, a bunch of X-Men. You have Stan Lee in the fucking movie. Like, you know, Ethan Slurpee just has he stared at the painting like for hours to figure out what it was. You know, just things like that. They're having sex in the elevator. It's a comedy, and it wasn't, you know, really received well because of what Clerks was. So they're like, they expected another, you know, Clerks type movie, and they didn't get that. He wanted to try something different. And it eventually has become a cult classic. It didn't make a lot of money at the box office, but did really well in rentals. And you know, we're talking about they're coming out with a sequel soon. There's
like this urban legend story about Mallrats, about how at all the test screenings it tested through the roof. The guys from Universal were like, this movie is the highest tested movie since Animal House, and they thought this movie was going to be a massive hit because it tested like Animal House, and it made like something like in the thousands of dollars the first weekend in the box office, and by the second weekend it was gone completely.
That's so sad.
It sometimes means that like those test screenings, they don't mean shit.
No,
because this movie tested through the roof and it was panned, and it had to find its audience, and it did. Like the people that love this movie will defend this movie to the end, and the people that don't like this movie probably have a stick up their ass.
It's kind of true too. I mean, like Universal wanted like Mike Myers, Adam Sandler to be in this movie, or Chris Farley, you know, to be Brody, or an Ethan Hawke, you know, to be in this movie. Like they didn't want Jay Mewes to be in here as you know Jay. They wanted Seth Green. They actually had Seth Green on call in case he messed up.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy because Jay's in Clerks.
It's almost like the scene in like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back when they're making a Blunt Man and Chronic movie, and it's Dawson Leary and Jason Biggs, and he's like, I'm the pie fucker. I'm always going to be known as the pie fucker.
God damn it!
Like I can't see anybody else playing these roles.
Yeah, and again, you know, friends like Affleck. Look, think how big Affleck is now. You know, and going forward, like you know, as we go through the years, as we do other movies, like Affleck and Matt Damon owe a lot to Kevin Smith, because Kevin Smith actually gave out, you know, Good Will Hunting to Miramax.
Yeah.
He was actually the person that pushed that up. And they joke about it in James Silent Bob.
He also wrote it. Like no one's going to admit that he wrote it, but he wrote Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, that's another thing I've heard too. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah,
I haven't heard that either.
Kevin Smith absolutely wrote Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, it has like he had a lot of influence on the script. Is what I was reading about like before.
Interesting.
But I mean, they're so close friends. But just stuff like that, like getting his friends in the door, like dudes are all standing up guy. And you just like, and to me, as he would go through his movies, you see that he just likes to make movies for movies, like with his friends, like to have fun.
Yeah,
you know, and this is one of them.
Well, I think if you find a bunch of money, right, and you're with your buds, like, and you don't have like bills, and you don't have to worry about like, you know, debt or whatever, you're like, hey, let's go have fun with this money, you know, and that's what he did. It's like, hey, listen, I got lucked out, and like I won the lottery here. Like I wrote a good movie and it got produced and it's out there. Now people are giving me money to make movies. So let's just go have fun and make movies because that's what we kind of want to do. It was awesome.
Yep. Let's get into the next one, guys.
Oh my God. Who are you, Larry fucking Flint? What are you gonna do with all those?
Read the articles. What do you think I'm gonna do with them? They're stroke books, stupid.
You got like 30 books in there. We're only gonna be gone for 2 days.
Variety's the spice of life. I like a wide selection. Sometimes I'm in the mood for nasty close-ups. Sometimes I like them already in airbrush. Sometimes it's a spread brown eye kind of night. Sometimes it's girl on girl time. Sometimes a steamy literal do. Sometimes, not often, but sometimes, I like the idea of a chick with a horse.
Chasing Amy was made in 1997, starring Ben Affleck, Joey Lauren Adams, and Jason Lee. This movie had a $250,000 budget due to Kevin Smith being told to cast different people again in his movies. And he told Miramax, how about I make it on my own buck? And then you guys, if you like it, you'll buy it. So they gave him $250K and told him, yeah, sure, do that. And they loved it. And it made $12 million at the box office. This movie is considered Kevin Smith's favorite.
It really? It's good.
MSS, tell me about Chasing Amy.
Chasing Amy, probably my favorite movie of his by far. Just because Clerks was a comedy. And there was dark stuff to it too. But Chasing Amy showed like a guy, a man dealing with like emotions and trying to figure out like his place in the world. You have your buds, and then you also have your girl. You want to be with this girl, and then it just happens the girl's a lesbian, and it was like, I don't want to say groundbreaking, but it might have been. Like, I don't think a lot of people that watched Kevin Smith movies at that time were probably, familiar with lesbianism. Like a bunch of dudes, like, bros were watching Kevin Smith films because it's funny. There's dick jokes, and Chasing Amy was just like, I just remember the ending and just being totally crushed and then just being really like sad, but then okay with it, because it comes back around. And also like similar to Swingers, the voicemail scene, when he's talking to her and he just doesn't shut the fuck up and let her talk. Like he's saying, I know what you're thinking because I can see it on your face. And I don't want to like, it's obviously rejection. And this is like, shut up, just let her talk, and this was probably the first Kevin Smith movie that I saw in the theater. And I loved everything about it, so much so that I bought the dollar video copy for like $10 and then had him sign it. So it's a great movie. I watched some scenes today because I was like, I got to prep for this. And I'm like, I got to watch back with some of it. And I was just like, I just remember how great this is and just how great like Kevin Smith's writing is. Like he is just such a great writer and is such a great conversationalist writer, writes the best conversations, like just very like natural and flow. Like, and like, just Jason Lee just there. He's like, and sometimes, but not always, I like the idea of a girl with a horse. It's just like, so it's not gnarly. It's not, it's not gross. It's not whatever. It's very factually stated, and it just rolls right off the edge of his tongue because that's what people say. It seems like he's actually talking.
I love that you brought up the way that he writes dialogue. Like he writes dialogue better than a lot of people do. And then like they cut away from that scene and he comes back and he's looking at a porno mag with a little kid.
Yes.
And he goes, and then Black Beauty decided to do some mounting of her own.
And then he's like, I think I'll have kids one day.
I think I'll have kids one day. But you're right. This movie came out in 1997 and I was like a sophomore or junior in high school. Right. And I'm like, I only knew what I knew about the LGBTQ community, like from what I saw in movies, right? And it was adult movies, right? So like this was like, okay, like I get it. It definitely, like Fids in the comments said, like it challenged the bro code at the time. And it definitely did, and it was groundbreaking. Like it absolutely was. I love Chasing Amy. I love the music. I think my favorite line in this movie though is when they're at the Comic-Con panel and Jason Lee stands up and he goes, "What's a Nubian?"
I almost had that as our the whole Hooper X when he goes into his spiel. I was thinking about putting that, but I'm like, that might be a little too controversial. But I was gonna put that in there. Like that whole sequence. If you guys haven't seen the movie, watch that whole sequence of him on the comic book panel when Jason Lee and Holding come in, and there's a guy Hooper talking about his comic book, which I can't say his name of, but that whole like scene is hilarious. And that guy, he played a great role too, like in the movie. The fact that he tries to convince Brody that Banky, he tries to convince Banky that
Archie
Jughead and Archie are gay, yeah. And he explains to him why he's gay, and like Banky just won't like accept it. It's just that whole like sequence is funny. This movie has a lot of good comedy in it, but it also shows a lot of turmoil like within the person about finding himself. And Amy expresses that her too, and she tells him, in the rain, like, you thought you knew what you wanted to do. Like when I was growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life.
Right.
I didn't know who I was yet. And there's some truth to that aspect. I mean, Kevin Smith came out later, I think in 2010, and said, they could have handled the issue of homosexuality better in this movie. And they could have. I mean, I don't think this movie would be made today and the way it was made.
And I'm glad you said that, Young, because I was going to ask you this, and it stems from how I've talked with, with my wife, and then with like her family. We were just on a family vacation, and if you go back and you listen to like a lot of comedy stuff and movies from like the 90s, like people said things that now are considered derogatory terms towards homosexual community, lesbians, everything. And I've tried to explain it several times. It's like when people use that word back then, when they used the F word, or or they said that something was gay or whatever, it was not, we weren't using it as a slam against a person's sexuality. It wasn't something that wasn't on the forefront of our mind, right? I can understand how somebody looking from the outside can see that and go, well, maybe that's not, that's probably not true, but it was just different. Like you just weren't, I don't think we've thought that way. And so it's weird. And that's what the one thing, like, it probably would not get made today. And I wonder how, when you go back and look at it like a kid now, like a high schooler, late high school, early college would watch that movie, and I wonder what they would think, because it's a touchy subject to say those things. But I also I never looked at it like, oh my God, he's totally ragging on gay men by saying the F word. Like I don't buy it. Like that was just the speak at the time. That's how it was.
I think like Fitz put up a good comment saying, Eddie Murphy Raw is rough in hindsight. And it is. I think comedy is different, when we grew up than what we're experiencing now.
Yeah.
And, with, back then too, a lot more, you had this was made in the 90s. So this is right after, the AIDS pandemic in the 80s. There was a lot of information that we learn about, people who are more outspoken now. There's a lot more people who are open with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as, 30 years later, we're more open as, society, at least we should be. So we understand when things are hurtful. I mean, you can even go back to, if you want to go back to in the films, how indigenous people were portrayed in the 60s and the 50s, they're not really like that. So I think it's just the evolution of film. Now, the film itself, like, I don't think it could be made today, which is, the way Banky acts and whatnot like that. But it does have some good parts in it. Like I said, the monologue from Amy about how she's struggling with herself, that's a good thing. Even has some good stuff on relationship when Hooper tells Holden, you're worrying about her past when you should be worrying about you guys now. Like, she's with you. And just the fact that she settled for him and like his turmoil with that. Like, it's, to me, this is actually a really good movie. I understand why it got so much critical acclaim. She got nominated for a Golden Globe for this movie, Golden Globe for this movie. Siskel and Ebert both liked it. Kevin Smith said on his podcast that it was 2 votes away from being nominated for an Oscar for screenplay. Wow. It's a good movie. Like, it does have some stuff in there that wouldn't fly today, but at the time, if we hold this in the context of time, it's a decent movie.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great movie. If you hold it in the concept of time, a great movie. And I don't know if people can see that, but on that copy of the VHS tape that I got signed, he circled Joey Lauren Adams' face and wrote "had her," and then wrote Kevin Smith. And I just always like have held on to this, like not just because he's one of my favorite movies and favorite directors, but like it was just funny that he did that. Like, like, yeah, I've been there. Just want you to know, And so when we were talking about, the whole scene where he just wouldn't shut up when he's talking in the car. And we were talking that, and then like, just why is he like this? And Kevin Smith's like, I wanted him to stop talking, and then they had the moment there, in the car. He's like, but when we tested it, everyone wanted him to keep going. So that's why we left it like as a long scene versus a short scene. Because I'm like, it just killed me. Like even watching it today, the clip today, I was just like, oh, just shut up. Like, stop. Like, what are you doing? Don't do that. But that's like perfect. Because that's if you want to get a reaction as an artist, you want to get a reaction from your audience, and like that is 100% going to get you a reaction. Like, just you're doing something so horrible, and it's so raw, and it can hit home to like, a person in the same shoe. Like we've all had that happen to us. So you're just like, oh God, if I just would have stopped talking, if I wouldn't have done that, if I wouldn't have got in the car, if I wouldn't have had that drink, if I hadn't, whatever. And you're just like, you're seeing somebody make the mistake, and you're just like, just stop. So
yeah,
great
flick. It's a lot of good things in it. So you got anything to add?
Yeah, actually, I want to show this comment again because like, it kind of just touches on what you guys talked about. Dale said this, like, yep, we evolve. Used to say that word all the time back in the day, not anymore, and that's a good thing, right?
Right.
We know that those words weren't the words that we're talking about weren't great. And now we realize that, and we kind of don't do it. So I like that Dale said that, and I just wanted to touch on that. But I love this movie. I think it's great. I think my biggest beef is she wears a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey in the movie.
One of my favorite parts in the movie is when she tells the referee, if you don't use that whistle, I'm going to shove it up your ass.
That's a great scene too, because he's like trying to get her to admit to the finger cuffs thing. And the role play, like the fight is going along with the comments, like the conversation.
And she knows exactly what he's getting at.
100%. And then just screams it at him.
Yeah.
And that's a thing too, MSS. I love that you point that out. Like, Kevin Smith is a very good visual director. Like, maybe because we associate him more with comedy. Like, but it's stuff like that, like you see that, they're having a conflict, but there's a conflict there. Like, stuff like that is very good, visually. Yeah. And he doesn't get enough credit for that.
No. He doesn't, it's because his films don't look good necessarily. Like, there's no depth. There's no, like, they're not pretty wide open, like huge scenes or anything. Like, oh, look at the beautiful trees. Look at this. It's just like, it just feels like you're in the back of a car with the guys, And I know he had said like, it's because of his like comic book, like type background. It's very flat. He like makes like things look flat, but he also like, I just don't think he's that skilled in that. And it doesn't really matter. Like, I'd rather see a good story than make it look pretty. It doesn't need to be pretty if it's a good story.
And that's totally true. Let's move on to our next one, guys.
But if we can let them know the Catholic Church has a little panache, we can win them back. Even get some new ones. Excuse me. Fill them pews, people. That's the key. Grab the little ones as well. Hook them while they're young.
Kind of like the tobacco industry.
Christ, if only we had their numbers.
1999's Dogma, starring Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Linda Fiorentino, Alan Rickman, George Carlin, Salma Hayek, and Chris Rock. This movie had a budget of $10 million and brought in $44 million, his most to date. So tell me why you like Dogma.
I think Dogma was a giant slap in the face to the Catholic Church. I thought the cast was fantastic. You guys already know how I feel about Affleck. I love the fact that when you are, kicked out of heaven, where do they send you? It's not hell, Wisconsin, right? So it was a nice dig at my Wisconsin brethren and the Packers fans. Jason Lee, like in love with Central Air. I thought the storyline was great. I thought Chris Rock was hilarious. And then Alan Rickman is like, yeah, Alan Rickman was amazing in this movie. This movie has so many quotable lines. And I don't care. spoiler alert, this movie's like 20-something years old. Alanis Morissette is God. I thought was a fantastic touch. I love Dogma. I love everything in the View Askew universe.
You're not wrong. I mean, I liked it. I thought it was great. I think I bought it at one point. I think I had it on VHS, but I did not keep the VHS copy.
If you have a DVD or Blu-ray copy of this movie, it is worth like $100.
Is it really?
You cannot find it on any streaming service because Harvey Weinstein owns the rights to it, and you cannot find it on any streaming service. So if you have a Blu-ray copy of it, it's worth like $90 to $100.
Holy cow. Now, you have just given me another thing to look for when I'm at a thrift store. So I will now be going through stuff looking quickly for a Dogma copy. That's crazy. Like, I'm going to, yes, Dale. Stay out of my unique Dale, you son of a bitch. That guy goes to the same thrift store as I do. And we actually ran into each other one time outside of the thrift store. And instead of punching him in the face, I gave him a hot tip on something that was in there that I wasn't going to purchase. And then we hugged. So we don't actually hate each other. But yeah, he definitely goes and tries to loot my unique store. So it's kind of shitty. But yeah, no, this movie came out again when I was in college, and they boycotted it at the movie theater that they showed it at in DeKalb, which was just crazy. And another great My Sox Summer college story, when I had an art show for my senior year, I put up letters from like a fake concerned person, like, hey, oh, this guy's got some really crazy art. We should go, like, boycott his art show like we did Dogma, a year ago or whatever. And no one came and boycotted my art show. No one gave shits. But I thought I was like, here, I'm getting this. This is how I'm going to get people to pay attention to my art. And it didn't work. But yeah, he got that was gone. And it was also another like just smart movie. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, Catholics are fucking stupid or Catholicism is dumb. And like, it's like, anyone that grew up in the Catholic religion, like saw all this stuff and you're really just like, man, this is crap. This is bullshit. And this was like I know it was going on and like, all the sexual assault stuff was happening during all this time, but it wasn't brought to the light like it has been, since then, but like, it was just calling out the ironicness and like a shit demon. I can't believe neither one of you, mentioned the shit demon and Selma Hayek. I mean, just like two total opposite sides of the spectrum. You have really hot Selma Hayek and then a big pile of poop. So it was great.
I was going to mention Selma Hayek, but I was kind of saving it for Yumper because that's like his thing.
Oh, is that his?
That's like his thing.
Yeah. Selma Hayek's like, I saw Selma Hayek in Desperado and I've been in love with her ever since. But no, totally agree with you how he makes fun of religion. I mean, George Carlin plays the Cardinal Glick, and George Carlin was outspoken in all his routines about, religion.
Oh yeah.
The church, how it's a sham, and he's atheist. Like, that's ironic in itself that he plays the guy who introduces Buddy Christ. Just, those little aspects, little points there. They said Alan Rickman loved working on this movie as the Megatron, dos tequilas, por favor. So that's just a great cast in this movie. It's crazy. And then if we're talking about the protesting, the funny thing about it is Kevin Smith actually attended one of these protests against his own movie. And he actually got on the news and they interviewed him like as a protester.
Really?
You can look for it on YouTube. Yeah, you can look for it on YouTube. And he's like said something like, oh yeah, this movie goes against everything religion is. And it's like Kevin Smith, the director of Dogma, which I think is hilarious. Another funny thing, cool thing I found about this is actually he wrote this movie before he wrote Clerks, and he saved it because he wanted to make it when he had more money.
I mean, that makes sense, right? Especially if you've seen some of the other movies, his pre-movies, like, because wasn't Vulgar? Did he write Vulgar or did he just produce Vulgar?
I don't think that was a Kevin Smith movie. Like, I know that like he produced it and he helped with it, but I think that was Tell Him Steve Dave, that guy. I think it was that guy that made that movie.
Ryan Johnson?
That's Raw, and that's their View Askew logo is Vulgar the Clown.
Yeah.
So he wrote this before he wrote Clerks, it's just like, hey, my mom was a huge George Carlin fan. and is also the biggest Catholic person I know. So it's the weirdest like dichotomy like ever. Like she is, gave me the LP class clown, but also was like, you need to go to get confirmed by the Catholic religion, So like, he had great stuff. And I know through the documentary of George Carlin that Judd Apatow did on HBO, he did not take off his ring because his wife had just died. So he has his wedding ring on as the cardinal. And yeah, cardinals aren't supposed to get married.
Well, I was reading about that too. It's funny you bring that up. They said he actually could have got around that because cardinals are usually giving rings.
Okay.
And when they're appointed. So it could have been like a more, not flashy ring.
Like Pesci the Irishman.
Yeah. Like Pesci the Irishman. But no, I really like this movie. Just the whole, I think it kind of reminds me a lot of Mel Brooks's like old movies, when he makes fun of religion, with Moses going up to the mountaintop. This is kind of like my version of it, I guess, because
the
it's in the
15
90s.
Commandments.
Yeah, then they dropped one.
The 10 Commandments.
And I think Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are great in this movie together.
Unbelievably great.
I think there's also a line in this movie that I think is severely, I don't want to say ahead of its time, but like it's an argument that still happens on today where like Jay and Silent Bob are trying to pick up women outside of the abortion clinic. And they go, Bethany goes, "You're not with Fight to Lifers." And he goes, "You mean those fucks with the signs and the pictures of dead babies? Shit, no. Me and Silent Bob are pro-choice. A woman's body is her own fucking business." Like, I think it's brilliant. Like, it's brilliant, and it's a message that still we have to like fight to get out today. Like, I
totally.
I love this fucking movie.
Yeah, it's a classic, man. But with that, guys, let's move on to our next one.
Oh,
You okay?
oh my God! I'm paralyzed! That monkey shot me in the ass and paralyzed me! Oh, sweet irony!
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was made in 2001, and this movie stars Jason Mewes, Kevin Smith, Shannon Elizabeth, Eliza Dourque, Will Ferrell, Ali Lauder, and Jennifer Swalbeck Smith. This movie had a budget of $22 million and made $38 million at the box office. Bull, tell me about Jay and Silent Bob.
So I went to go see this movie at the Ford City Theater with my cousin Mark, and in the middle of the screening, a rat ran across our feet in the middle of the movie. And that's really all I remember from the theater because I was afraid to put my feet down. I've seen this movie numerous times. It's funny, moviepoopshoot.com. I'm the Clit Commander. Like there's so many quotable lines in here. But all I remember is the rat running across my feet in the middle of the theater at Ford Shitty.
Oh man. That's a bummer. What? Hey, Yump. So when was this released again?
This was released in 2001.
Okay, 2001. So I saw it in Arizona. I don't know if you guys know, but I used to live out west too.
There it is.
And
there it is.
Everyone drink. But no, I remember I saw this in Arizona, and I think me and my buddy that I was living with, and we went to it the first time, and then we went back a second time because they're like, that was just hilarious. It was so funny, and it just like. This was the movie I was like, yes, Kevin Smith is going to be around, and he went back to his roots, with these guys. And, I thought it was great. And I don't know for certain, but wasn't this one of the movies that like was Jay clean on this movie or was he a mess on this movie? I think he was clean, right?
I think he was clean for this movie.
No, for this movie, actually, he was really bad.
Okay. So this was his worst one.
This is one where he had to have somebody babysit him. He even said himself he would go get high in his trailer before when nobody was around, but he had to have somebody basically babysit him and stay with him 24/7.
Oh, that's right, because he got paid for this movie and he was able to keep himself hooked up.
Yeah. So Mewes, it says here Mewes would have constant mood swings due to heroin withdrawal to the point that Kevin Smith actually threw him out of his car on the way to the set one day. He would compensate for lack of drugs by heavily drinking in his trailer. So yeah, I think Kevin Smith came out and said that this is probably one of his hardest movies to make because of Jay's addiction.
Yeah.
So this is kind of where he's starting to spiral down.
Okay. So it was the other sequel, or it was the sequel that he was using as the bait after he got clean. So yeah, I just thought it was a fun movie, and like the whole Blunt Man and Chronic thing was just funny too. Like not knowing that like there was like the internet, like he didn't know what the internet was, so like they show him the internet.
Fuck is the internet?
I was gonna have that as our quote too, but I decided to go with the Will Ferrell one because that part just cracks me up with the monkey.
And what a lovely tea party!
we're gonna go out west and kick all these fucking guys' asses. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, "Are you, Magnolia lover? Whatever."
Magnolia fan.
And he's like, and he starts beating the shit out of him. Like it's just great.
It's funny you say that, MSS, because I read today that the reason Magnolia fan is in there is because Kevin Smith went on a Magnolia fan board and like trashed the movie, and like Paul Thomas Anderson, all the people, his people came after him.
Oh man!
So he wanted to write it in his movie. He calls himself Magnolia fan.
Oh, that's hilarious. No, it was a great movie and just fun. Like I don't know, it was a fun movie.
It's not groundbreaking. It didn't do anything like it didn't set any trends, but it was funny and it had quotable lines in it. Like when he fills the cup. Like I think I filled the cup at movies, right? Like it's just stupid fun.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not a big fan of Chris Rock, but his role in here is hilarious. With Jamie Kennedy as his lackey. This movie's gonna be bigger than House Party 1. House Party 2, and the guy's like, "Our House Party 3." He's like, "Shut the fuck up." Parts like that, are hilarious. Will Ferrell, I think, is comedic genius in this movie. He's great. Even like little parts for like Sean William Scott, as Brad, I think his name is, who is a patsy for
yes,
when he gets him to say he wants to bang a sheep.
Yes,
that part's Mark fucking Hamill's in this movie as
Cockknocker,
and his lightsaber is a vibrator. Apparently, they use a vibrator for his lightsaber, which I think is hilarious. But that whole sequence of him doing Star Wars, Kevin Smith has Star Wars in all his movies, but like you put it perfectly, Swole. It's not a great movie. It's a funny movie, and that's what it's supposed to be. But let's move on to the next one, guys.
When fucking Frito wakes up from his little coma or whatever, and the little hobbits are jumping up and down on his bed, and Sam leans in the doorway and gives him that very fucking gay look.
Not the rings, Randall. Say what you will about Jesus, but leave the rings out of this.
I'm gonna kick your ass back to the Shire if you don't shut your fucking mouth.
Clerks 2 was made in 2005, starring Brian O'Halloran, Jeff Anderson, Rosario Dawson, Jason Mewes, Trevor Furman, and Jennifer Swalbeck Smith. This movie had a budget of $5 million and made $27 at the box office. MSS, tell me about Clerks 2.
Great movie. I saw it in the theater, and I actually drove by where they filmed all the movie stuff because it was by Knott's Berry Farm, and it was an old Burger King. And I remember driving by there. There was a mall over there. They had Stephen Barry's, and I wanted to get a pair of Starberries. And so I drove over to the Stephen Barry's to get my Starberries. And when I was driving home, I see a big movie sign. And I'm like, why is that familiar? And like, why does this look familiar? And so then I went home and Googled it, and it was like, oh shit. And I go, oh, that's the Clerks 2 set. And then later they built up a big walls around it so you couldn't see it. But like, it was that I remember seeing it one time and going, this is amazing. The thing I don't like about Clerks 2 is there is no way Dante is hooking up with Rosario Dawson. I mean, there's just not even an opportunity, a chance, a shot in hell that Rosario Dawson is even looking twice at a guy like Dante. Like
I buy Jennifer Smith. I don't buy Rosario Dawson.
Yep. The meanie asshole girlfriend, absolutely. I do not buy smoking hot. Rosario Dawson is looking even once at fucking Dante. It's just not happening. Like, she knows the stories. She knows that he was with hoes. Like, she's not gonna get with him. So that was the one part I just had a really, really hard time with. But again, I thought that he took the essence of the first movie and kind of put it into the second movie, but also pushed the envelope with a lot of Randall stuff. Like the Randall trying to reclaim a certain word that I'm not going to say. I was just like, this is the funniest. It was just fucking funny. And it was so wrong, but it was funny that he's even trying to do it. And like, I I liked the movie. I thought it was very entertaining. I definitely bought the DVD. And it was like I just it's a great movie, a great feel.
I think it's another like great example of dudes like dealing like with a midlife crisis. Like what's next in my life? Like, what am I doing with my life? Where is this going? I'm still working at movies, at 40, and the bachelor party scene was hilarious.
God,
Tina
I didn't remember that until you said it, but now I definitely remember it.
Tina could be a boy's name too.
Yeah. The funny part about that is when I was doing research for our show, they were looking for somebody to play Rosario Dawson's spot. And they wanted Rachel Weisz, Bryce Dallas Howard. They were looking at because she was considered a long shot. Rosario Dawson was like he had her in mind, but he considered her a long shot. And the thing that got her to do the movie is she wanted to see how they were going to do the donkey scene. That's what got her to sign on.
The donkey scene is just like he go like we know he did that. Tina could be a boy's name too, and then he just.
It's so bad, dude. That part like that. This movie is like very raunchy, and like I watched it with Jen, and she was cracking up. And it's like Clerks 1 and 2 are totally different movies. This is more like a more raunchier comedy than the first one. But this movie had some like great, like I think Elias like steals the show for me in this movie. Like his character.
Oh,
the whole shit Randall talks to him about Transformers, Lord of the
Rings versus Star Wars argument is just perfect.
The troll, the plump troll that he talks about.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, even the trees walk in that fucking movie.
and that dialogue is actually from Kevin Smith doing it at one of his college shows. He went off on it. That was actually verbatim what he said about Lord of the Rings. So that was hilarious.
The pussy troll is hilarious too.
Yep.
Yeah. And that too, Swole, you brought that up. Harvey Weinstein wanted to have a scene with Troll. And like Kevin Smith's like, I don't know if we should be doing this. And I got cut, but that's how much he wanted that to happen. So that just shows he's a creep.
What a dirty fuck.
Definitely. But to go back on, as we were talking earlier in an earlier movie about Jay Muse, Kevin Smith promised him a role in this movie if he cleaned up.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. Like, this is when he's starting to clean up. And I love the fact that he's wearing a Buddy Christ shirt while he's talking about religion and like being bored is time for the devil and stuff like that. I was pleasantly surprised when I saw this movie. I didn't think it was be as good as the first one, and I like exceeded my expectations. I think it's hilarious.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I agree.
And then like when Muse listens to the song from Silence of the Lambs.
Oh yeah.
He's like, oh, would you fuck me?
While putting on the
lipstick.
Yeah, while putting on a lipstick. Yeah. It has so many memorable scenes in there. Like it's hilarious.
It does.
But yeah, if you guys haven't seen Clerks 2, definitely check it out. But let's move on to our next one.
How are you not pissed off, huh? Kevin Smith is literally shitting in the mouth of the original movie.
I think the movie's going to be great.
Why are you sucking the reboot's dick? They're not going to put you in it, all right? They're never going to call you Diplo.
Listen, piefucker.
Vanderbitch.
Ooh, we called him Vanderbitch.
Jay and Silent Bob Reboot was made in 2019, starring Kevin Smith, Jason Mewes, and Harley Quinn Smith, the daughter of Kevin Smith. This movie had a box office of $4.7 million on a $10 million budget. Swole, tell me about the Reboot.
I went to go see Reboot at the Music Box when Kevin Smith did his tour, and I got to meet Kevin Smith at this tour on the at the Music Box, and he was like My Sox Summer said, one of the nicest dudes possibly you could meet. Like super nice, super outgoing, very talkative. The movie itself, no, Brian, we're not skipping Zack and Miri. Zack and Miri is not a part of the Skew universe. There's a View Askew universe, and if you knew your shit, you would know that. Sorry.
In your face, Brian, you bitch.
The movie was fun. It was goofy. I love that Eliza Dushku, not Eliza Dushku's character, but Shannon Elizabeth's character has a kid, and she wants to go on this trip to Comic-Con. Like, I liked it. It wasn't anything special, but it was bringing back these characters, and that's why I enjoyed it. It was nothing special, far from perfect, but definitely a fanboy movie that I enjoyed.
I have a confession.
You haven't seen it.
I've never seen this movie.
All right.
Not once. I didn't even know it existed. I thought it was still coming out.
No, we got to talk. I'll give you my login to watch this, like at some point, and you can watch it for free on me.
All right.
Yeah, check it out.
Streaming shit or no?
I don't know.
It's on Prime. I have it on Prime, but you gotta buy it.
Oh, you have to buy it on Prime?
Yeah, you have to buy it on Prime.
I'll hook you up, buddy.
That's bullshit.
You're a good friend. I'll hook you up.
Pay for shit. It's like 2022. We're paying for stuff still. Come on, get the fuck out of here. Somebody else should pay for that.
I do like the fact they brought back all the characters from previous movies. This movie actually marks the first time that Kevin Smith and Ben Affleck actually reconciled their relationship. When he was doing all those tours to colleges and whatnot, like Ben Affleck didn't like the fact he kept telling personal stories about Ben Affleck, and they kind of were distant for a while, and then they reconciled, and then he was in this movie. Also, Randall's not in this movie, but Clerks 3 wouldn't have been made if this movie wasn't made, because when they were doing this movie, they actually had a signing for some memorabilia that Kevin Smith was doing, and Randall was there. I forget Anderson's last name. He was there, and Jason Mewes and him were all talking, and they actually patched up their relationship to the point where Clerks 3 got made. So it's a good thing this movie was made. Is it the best of the three? I don't think so. I think it'll probably be I like Jane Silent Bob to Strike Back better than Mallrats, but
I get it.
It's a good movie. His daughter's in it. The only thing that really stuck out to me about this movie is that Jason Mewes looks really bad. Like, you could tell he's been through a lot.
He had to replace all of his teeth, so you could tell that there's a crown or dentures in there. But hey, man, the dude's clean and he's living life. So
no, more power to him. But you could tell he went through some rough times.
Yeah.
But it's a decent movie, MSS. Check it out. Like, you'll see a lot of characters from previous, Askew-verse that, they're all throughout Kevin Smith movies, like Holden McNeil's and their Banky's in there, and they bring back Biggs and Vanderbeek for the Comic-Con, which I thought was hilarious.
Hi, fucker.
But now that we kind of go outside of the Askew-verse, let's go to movies that are not in it. So we're not going to have any sound clips for these, but we're going to go through them. Starting off with Red State. So this movie was made in 2011. It's starring John Goodman, Melissa Leo, Mika Argiano, Nicholas Braun, and Matt Jones. It has a budget of $4 million and a box office of $1.8 million.
Sure.
I'm going to be honest with you. I couldn't get through this movie. It was really bad. It's a horror movie that Kevin Smith went straight horror for it. I understand what he was doing by doing it in a church, like a cult. I get it, but it was just bad for me to watch. Like, I couldn't really get into it. And I like Kevin Smith stuff. What about you, Swell?
Yeah, this was his like foray into something else. It was very, very much like anti-extremism. I liked it. I think Melissa Leo's fantastic. I think John Goodman's fantastic. Definitely a creepy movie. And when the bell tolls at the end, super creepy.
What about you, MSS?
Never seen it.
Okay.
I don't think I've watched that. Like, I for some reason when I see Red State, I think Red Dawn, and I thought it was a Red Dawn remake, and then that is definitely not a Red Dawn remake. So, yeah, listen to you guys describe it, because and when did you say 2011?
Yeah,
I was in California, bro. I was having fun. Man.
To be honest with you, you didn't miss anything. It's okay. It's like his first attempt at horror and doing nothing straight comedy. It's a straight horror movie.
It's not awful. It's just not good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then his next one, which is for you, Brian, 2008's Zack and Miri Make a Porno. This movie stars Seth Rogen, Elizabeth Banks, and Craig Robinson. This movie had a budget of $24 million and made $42.8 at the box office. Swole, tell me about Zack and Miri.
So Zack and Miri Make a Porno is actually my favorite Kevin Smith movie out of anything he's made. I think it's a deeper romantic comedy that most people give it credit for. It also, I'm very, very particular on holiday movies, and it's a Thanksgiving movie because it takes place at a high school reunion the day before Thanksgiving. I am a huge fan of this movie. It's very quotable. Like, there are scenes in here that just made me piss myself laughing. Like when they're making the scene on the counter and he pulls out and she shits all over him. Like, I love this movie's hilarious. I think it's so good. I also think Elizabeth Banks is super hot.
She is.
And Seth Rogen was like at his peak. Fitz, peak Seth Rogen. I think this is my favorite Kevin Smith movie.
She is hot, and not only is she hot, but she's like a loser in the movie.
Yeah.
So you're like, she's hot and she's a loser. I could potentially get with her.
I could bang
you know,
this
like
yes,
he is
absolutely.
totally Kevin Smith. Whatever he did, like to get Rosario Dawson to fall in love with fucking Dante, like he is tapped into that. It's like, how can I provide every male watching this movie with the same experience as Dante is feeling in this movie? I will get a hot chick and make her a loser in this whole thing. And like it's a great movie. They're like, oh Jesus Christ, like his name, I can't remember his name. Guy plays the piano, black guy.
Greg Robinson.
Yes, like awesome, like just such a little part, but the best part of the whole fucking movie. Like right at the beginning,
he's got a production company in the movie that I'm not going to repeat the name.
No,
there's a line in the movie when he goes, "Oh, this is what you called your movie company?" He's like, "Yeah, DreamWorks was taken." And he goes, "Plus, sounds like a gay underground fuck club. I met a guy at DreamWorks."
Like, and that's just like I loved it, and I loved that the guy that Elizabeth Banks was like in love with was like a total, like he's like a gay guy, and he's
cool.
and it's just like the funniest. I don't know, it was just great. I loved it, and I loved that. Like we had it. Some guy, I don't know who gave me the copy, but I had a bootleg copy of it. So we watched it on Christmas Day with my mom and my dad and my sister and my brother-in-law. And like I had never seen it before, so I wasn't sure what it was going to be. And I just, my mom's like, "Do you think this is appropriate?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but do you want to watch it?" And she says, "Sure." So we watched it, and it was hilarious. I think my dad was the most offended. He's kind of a wuss. But yeah, like I mean, this like Jay in that movie, it's just the best. He's so dirty and so gross, and it's just it's the best. I love that movie. And they also had an actual porn star in that movie. Katie, what's her last name? It's
Katie Morgan. It's
Katie Morgan. Yeah, and she's like a legit porn star.
Yeah.
So that was fun. It was I like that movie. And Svo, you're right. This could potentially be like a top 2, top 3 Kevin Smith movie.
I just think it's good. It's good comedy. Like Justin Long's character, Brandon St. Randy, is hilarious.
Yes.
He's like, you star in movies like with all male casts, like Glengarry Glen Ross. He's like, more like Glenn sucks Ross's meaty cock. Like,
yes, Glenn sucks Ross's cock. Yeah. and he was like the Apple guy at that point, right?
He was the Apple guy.
Yes.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah, this movie is completely raunchy. I kind of found it interesting that Kevin Smith was actually really frustrated that this movie didn't blow up. Especially he was kind of considering it, banking on it, to blow up after Knocked Up came out.
Oh, this movie should have made him like Judd Apatow, like bigger than Apatow, because this movie was perfect.
And I think it's right up there with the Judd Apatow. This is 40. Those
it
movies.
Feels like an Apatow movie.
It does.
Definitely.
It does.
And Seth Rogen ruining fucking all Apatow movies.
It's funny that you say, Miri, played by Elizabeth Banks, was like smoking. Rosario Dawson was actually offered that role. She just couldn't do it because she was doing Eagle Eye.
Really?
Oh, she fucked up.
I don't think it would have played the same though.
No, Elizabeth Banks nailed this role.
Yeah, this is definitely a blonde bimbo-y type, role person, but a smart person. Like a smart person playing like the whore. I guess is I don't know how to explain that, but like Rosario Dawson would not have flown. I just wouldn't have flown. I don't think that would have flown.
I agree.
Yeah, but let's move on to the next one, Tusk, which was made in 2014. It stars Justin Long, Michael Parks, Haley Joel Osment, Genesis Rodriguez, and Johnny Depp. This movie had a box office of $1.9 million and a budget of $3 million. The most funniest part about this movie, I actually watched it again, is that this movie came out of a concept thought up on a podcast.
A podcast, yeah.
And he just threw it up on Twitter and asked his fans, "Do you want to see a Tusk movie?" And people were like, "Yeah." And it went from there. Now, I was talking about my brother about this because he's a big horror guy. He wrote his thesis on horror for college and whatnot. He's not a huge fan of this movie, but watching it, it's kind of like it's kind of messed up psychologically and
kind of like he drugs the dude, he kidnaps him, and he turns him into a whale.
Yeah, but the but the fact that like what Justin Long goes through though, like at the end of the movie, spoiler, when he realizes what happens, like you can see kind of like a little bit of humanity in him. And
I think Fids nails this. Like I think this was made just so he could work with Michael Park.
Yeah, probably. Well, actually, Quentin Tarantino was actually offered that role. And he's like, no, I want to see Michael Park go apeshit.
Yeah. Well, and also this would have been his second movie with Michael Parks, right? Because he was in Red State.
Yes. So, I kind of started to like Tusk. Sorry, Matt, but I kind of like it now. Like it grew on me, but it's a really messed up movie.
Maybe I'll go back and watch Tusk.
I have never seen it, so I need to watch that.
It's like the story, the concept of it is basically ridiculous.
It's so goofy.
It's goofy, but just the scenes where he's turning into the walrus are fucked up. Like they're bad. Like, and you kind of feel bad for him. But yeah, I would recommend you guys check it out. Let me know what you guys think. But moving on to Yoga Hosers. This was made in 2016. This movie stars Lily Rose Depp, Harley Quinn Smith, Johnny Depp, and Adam Boddy. This movie made a whopping $38,000 at the box office with a budget of $5 million. I was telling you guys off the air, I couldn't get through this movie. I thought it was really bad.
This movie was awful.
It's not good.
And he's making another one. Welcome to Moose Land or some shit.
Moose Jaw, I think.
Yeah, Moose Jaw. Thank you. To complete the trilogy, Tusk is the first. This is the second, and Moose Jaw will be the third.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
This movie's awful. It's terrible.
Yeah, man. I could not get into it. It was just really bad.
There's little bratwursts that come alive, and they're Nazis.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's awful.
They have to kill him, right? They kill him.
It's
like a zombie movie, right? Yes. Like I watched it. It was like Clerks meet like Zombie Land.
Kind of. I think that's an accurate description.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just failed at it. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you got time to kill, check it out.
Yeah, no.
Absolutely terrible.
But and then another film that we're going to talk about is Cop Out, which was released in 2010. Movie starred Bruce Willis, Tracy Morgan, Kevin Pollak, Sean William Scott, and Juan Carlos Hernandez. This movie had a budget of $30 million and a box office of $55 million. This movie is actually the largest grossing movie of Kevin Smith's career. And it's kind of sucks because he was a huge Bruce Willis fan.
Yeah, never meet your heroes.
And Bruce Willis was a complete asshole to him on set, to the point where Tracy Morgan stopped talking to him because he said Kevin Smith would give him a direction. He refused to stand, and he would ignore him, walk to catering, refuse to step on his markers. Like he was just a complete dick the whole time he was in there.
Man. I mean, Bruce Willis like resembles a penis. So I have to imagine that he is a penis. You know what I mean? Like you look like what you are, I mean,
I don't disagree with that.
It kind of sucks because he's like the action guy, Die Hard, Last Boy Scout, those movies. Like I remember, and then
Kevin Smith was in a Die Hard movie, and that's why this movie got made.
Right?
That's why he wanted to work with him.
Yeah, and even in Last Boy Scout, he did that movie with Damon Wayans, and him and Damon Wayans didn't get along either. He said he was a complete dick.
Maybe he doesn't like black people. You heard it here first on the Yumper and Spokane that Bruce Willis is racist.
Great.
No, God.
Pretty much.
Well, it was a fantastic podcast, Yump. This is our last episode.
Emma Smith, come on.
Hey, it's me. I'll take the heat. Guess what?
Randall.
They always tell me I'm uncancelable on the 108 podcast, so I can say whatever I want. Bruce Willis is a racist. All right, we got it out of the way.
But yeah, this movie, it was okay. I don't know what you guys think about it in terms of like the movie itself. I just thought it was like a cop movie. It's not. I think it was trying to be like a Rush Hour when it really wasn't as good. That's just.
I never saw it. I
didn't see this one either. It's average. It's whatever.
Yeah. So, and that we're gonna close it out with Fitz's favorite movie, Jersey Girl, which was released in 2004. This movie starred Ben Affleck, Liv Tyler, I'm sorry, George Carlin, Raquel Castro, and Jennifer Lopez. This movie had a budget of $35 million and made $36.1 million at the box office. The funny part about this movie is Jennifer Lopez was all over the promotional posters And after Geely happened, they're like, fuck that. Take her off. And they removed her and they cut down her screen time to where she like dies in the beginning of the movie.
Right.
Spoiler alert. But this movie was okay.
Isn't as bad as everybody makes it out to be.
It isn't. It's actually a good movie.
I would agree with that completely. It's not great. It's not perfect, but it's not as bad as everybody makes it out to be.
And it's the first appearance of Harley Quinn Smith, too, right? There's a little chubby-faced girl looking through the window and smiling. And I can remember that scene, and I almost want to tear up as I'm thinking of it. It's just like, because she looks so young and so nice, and she's just waving, you know, and you're just like, okay. And I remember people just panning this movie and talking about how crappy it was and blah, blah, blah. And they're probably talking about Geely. And this wasn't as bad.
I would agree with that. Geely was awful. This was nowhere near as bad as people are making it out to be.
I don't think it was horrible. Like I said, it just happened to happen at bad time for Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. George Carlin, I'm a huge fan of George Carlin. I love the fact he plays his dad.
Yep.
I thought the story was kind of good, like of him being a selfish dad, you know, basically because he was grieving because his wife died.
Yeah.
You know, so he had some resentment against his daughter. It wasn't a horrible movie.
He figured his shit out and he was a good dad.
Yeah, it wasn't a horrible movie. But out of the ones within this realm, I would say Zack and Miri would probably be number one.
Oh, yeah.
I would go with Tusk or Jersey Girl was number two, and the rest they can fall where they may.
Yeah, they could just kind of go away.
Yeah. But that's the Kevin Smith movies, guys. Thank you so much, MSS, for joining us, dude. It was a lot of fun. We greatly appreciate all your support. You know, everybody out there, MSS is one of our, you know, biggest supporters. He doesn't, we don't like to brag about it. He doesn't brag about it, but you know, I'm gonna tell everybody now, like you, whenever I can reach out to you about anything, you're always there to help me, give me advice and whatnot.
Hey,
but I greatly appreciate it.
Yo, you're welcome, and keep sending me bottles of the Knob Creek. You know, the Knob Creek 12. You know, you guys sent this to me I just answered a question. It's I'm not over here, you know, like slicing atoms for you guys. I'm just like saying, hey, we've been through this. The 108, like, you know, was a total grassroots type thing. Same deal. Same as like the whole Tainted Glove Network. You know, you guys and everybody. You're like, we're just fans, and we're just figuring this shit out. So like, you have to like, hey, ask somebody who knows. That's how you're supposed to do it. So feel free, keep bringing the questions. Loaf is a smart guy. Therese is a total douchebag. So don't talk to Therese. He's a dickhead. So I know Loaf's been on your show. Just don't bring Therese on. He'll screw everything.
We got to get Therese on to talk Star Wars.
No, I know, and that's probably a good call.
Definitely.
Anytime.
You're the man, homie.
Yeah, we really appreciate you, MSS. Thanks so much for coming on, my man.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
And with that, let's go to our coming soon. So, Svol, you want to tell everybody what's coming up next?
Yeah, do we even know what's coming up next, Yumper? I just responded to your text. I don't know what's coming up next. Maybe we should do a fan poll.
Yes, let's do a fan poll. That sounds excellent.
Since we've been accused of not doing the movies that you love, we only do the movies that we love. Let's do a fan poll, and let's talk about the movies that you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, so actually we'll release the poll after this stream at Yumper and Svol on Twitter, and you guys just let us know what you want.
I think that's a good idea, right?
Yes, sir. You want to talk about Maniac Cop Brian? I watched this movie like 2 weeks ago, dude. Oh my god, I used to watch that movie with my brother as a kid. That movie's so great. It's so bad, but so great. Psycho Gorman is a good movie, Fitz.
We do need to get Fitz on to talk about that movie.
Yes, Fitz. Fitz part of the network. He'll be on. But with that though, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is where I usually do my thank yous to everybody. You know, shout out to MSS, to Zo. You know, Zo's my dude. Check out their stuff at Pinwheels and Ivy for Zo. Check out the From 108 for MSS. Check out his eBay links if he has them, so you can buy some stuff off him. If you need something found at the thrift store, he's a legend. He can help you find it. Good dudes. Check out all their stuff. Go subscribe. Follow them on Twitter at MSS, My Sox Summer, and at Southside Zo. And check out their podcast at Pinwheels and Ivy and at the 108.
And thank all you guys for your comments tonight. Like, reading them is hilarious. We appreciate you guys tuning in for our debut live episode.
Yes, guys. And with that, we're going to close it out like we always do with Swole's final thought.
Oh, look at that handsome bastard in that picture. So my final thought is super simple. I just want to say happy birthday to a man with questionable character, one of our mentors. This Yumper and Svo at the show wouldn't have been possible without Mr. Hand and Fids, and it's Pete's birthday today. So do me a favor in the comments, tell Pete happy birthday. Tell him that you love him because we love that dude. We love all you guys. White Sox Twitter, #1 movie podcast, Yumper and Svo at the show. See you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to Yumper and Svo at the Show podcast, a Tan and Glove production.
That's it. I'm getting out of here.